Welcome to Joyful People with Jillian Amadeo. Hardship and struggle are a part of everyone's story, but what we do to overcome those hardships is what truly shapes our narratives. Pull up a chair, pour a cup of tea, and get ready for inspirational stories from people just like you. Never forget, happiness is a journey and not a destination. It doesn't matter where you've been, as long as you continue to keep on going. So thanks for chatting today. So let's tell everybody your lovely name.
Joanne, me,
officially. And we met through Moms to Mental Health, right?
We did.
Yes. That's so exciting. So I just wanted to talk to just as many people as possible and kind of see what joy and happiness means to people and how it's changed throughout our life. And part of me really wanted to do this because I feel like when people are struggling, and it doesn't have to be a major struggle, it can just be like day-to-day struggles of busy moms, like I'm stressed and I'm tired, but you feel alone, and from the outside looking in, everybody's life seems perfect, unless it's a total disaster, then, you know, sometimes we see that too. But a lot of times, the people that we surround ourselves with, we think, why is their life so together? Why are they always so happy? Why are they functioning, you know, on such a high level, and I'm over here just trying to keep my head above water? And I think that if we break down those barriers with people and we kind of get to the bottom of what is your story? Like, what do you struggle with? What have you been through in life? When have you been happy? When have you been not so happy? Like, I think we kind of break down those walls of maybe I'm not the only one that goes through these kinds of things. So.
Wow.
That's just, you know, that's my,
all of that is why I volunteered to talk to you.
Thank you.
How long has Moms been for mental health been going on? Like a year?
No, not even. I think we started, our first meeting was in March. I think I might have started the group in like February.
Because it was a spinoff from like Naples Moms or something.
It kind of was. So I had posted, and I can't even remember why it started exactly. I think it was just, I had been talking to a bunch of people. And it's funny because a lot of people will reach out to me and be like, hey, I know this is totally random and I only know you online, but you seem like somebody who's easy to talk to. Can I just chat with you for a second? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, like, why not?
And that's a gift. That is a gift.
People.
Yep, that is a
I get
gift
it from my
and it comes
mom.
through.
I get it from my
and
mom.
I don't remember when it was either. I thought it was maybe about a year.
I don't think so. I think it's been...
But it was just something I saw, and then the group was created, and I went, oh, and I clicked on, and there was already like 480 people.
That happened within 2 weeks.
I know, and I was like, wait, what? I was like, uh-oh. So the thing for me is I first kind of clicked on because of my son's mental health struggles. Okay. I was kind of looking for a support group.
Yeah.
But also, I've been an al-anon now for, it'll be 5 years this fall. So I've learned a lot over the last 5 years. And so thinking about what you're doing, again, that was why and I think I said that. I showed up at one of the meetings and I'm 50. Yeah. I just turned 50. And my daughter, my youngest is almost 8. So I'm kind of an odd mix, you know. I'm in the same group with like 20-year-olds that have, you know, 30-year-olds that might have an 8-year-old, you know.
I know.
So it's a big gap, right? It's an experience gap, if nothing else.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, my daughter's 8, and I feel like I look to you guys to be like, what am I doing?
Exactly.
Please help me.
And I never had that. And I think so to start to feed back to what you said as the intro, I think, in thinking about how I wanted to present this, I think that most of my problem throughout my life, my personal story, was feeling disconnected, feeling like I didn't have a community, like I didn't have support, like I was isolated.
Yeah.
And in al-anon, connecting to now, I learned how not to do that.
Yeah.
So I think that's sort of a human thing. I think every single one of us thinks that we're alone. That nobody understands. You can talk your face blue to your best friend and emotionally, you know, unload over and over and over again, and nothing changes. You know, you can go to a therapist. I see a lot of people looking for therapists, and I'm not knocking therapy. I've been to a billion of them. I've had some good ones, I've had some great ones, and I've had some bad ones.
Yeah.
And they were all helpful for the period of time in my life where I was. But what I found in al-anon really just clicked for me. And so that really was the first thing they said was that isolating is a problem.
It is. Well, and like, there's the people who will talk and talk and talk, but still feel like they're not getting the support they need. Or there's the people who are like, you really don't care. Like, you really don't want to hear it. Like, if somebody asks me, how am I? Like, do they really want to know?
Right. Well, I was raised, you know, Irish Catholic in Massachusetts. I'm a Yankee. I'm a Yankee. And we pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps. That was not just a phrase to me. You know, My family was not very emotionally expressive. They didn't understand me. They told me I was too sensitive.
Yeah.
That's
like my biggest thing. I don't like when people say you're like someone's too sensitive. Like you're allowed to have big emotions.
Exactly.
Okay.
But you can't. But you can say that, but people don't understand it. I certainly didn't understand. And I talked my face blue, like I said, to friends. I have one friend that I've been with since I was 12.
Yeah.
You know, and she's been a super support and a super everything, but she wasn't going through it with me. She wasn't.
Right.
Not to say she's not my tribe, but she wasn't the tribe of al-anon who gets where I've been and gets who I am and gets what I've been through and how I experienced it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what a lot of people are missing, that community. So that's why I wanted to do this, because I really, really, really want to support anybody who's doing something in that realm. Because I am a mom, and I have been a young mom. I was, so fast forward through my life, I was in my mom was angry a lot. So I learned coping mechanisms to avoid that at any cost.
Avoid her anger?
Yeah.
Like directed
towards you? So lie, hide, sneak, all the things that I shouldn't have been doing. And I still think to this day, like I was just thinking about it this week, and thinking I should probably make some amends.
So is your relationship with your mom still kind of... It
always has been really good. So there's the dichotomy, right? Because at the same time that I'm doing those things and I feel isolated and I feel like I'm the only one and nobody understands and all of that kind of stuff. And it's something that you sort of internalize. At the same time, I had a great best friend. I had, marching band and concert band and jazz band and work and college and, all this stuff. A great job. I traveled overseas, all through my 20s, so as things progressed. But at the same exact time, I was, I never tried to commit suicide, but I certainly felt suicidal in high school.
Right. I think that people don't realize how, I hesitate to say common because it's not, I don't know, that makes it sound like it's okay, everybody feels that way. And it's not, but I think that more people struggle with those feelings than we realize.
Right. And so at the same time that probably everybody around me was like, look at her, she's great, she's going to college, she's got a boyfriend, she's got, this great job, she gets to travel to, overseas. I studied overseas, I traveled to Argentina, Bolivia. So from the outside,
your life was exciting.
Everybody thought I had the life,
Yeah.
So, but I mean, gosh, that was all of my 20s. And then there were some serious situations that came up during those things where at one time in my 20s, in my late 20s, I was at a party where someone was murdered by skinheads. So that was very traumatic, right?
Wow. Okay.
So after sort of high school and college and I'm doing this job thing, I will say up front too, and I don't throw this out lightly, people play with these words these days and they don't really get the meaning behind it. But I am a serious codependent. So yes, I was doing great at my job, but I was also working 80-hour weeks, and nobody was saying
what that means.
And nobody was saying, don't do that. Nobody was saying, you shouldn't be doing that. That's not healthy. Do you go out? Do you have a social life? Do you have friends? Do you have a support group? Do you have community?
Right.
And I did not. I was living on
my own. You were busy, but you didn't have.
Right. But I was out to prove I could take care of myself, that I had common sense, that I could take care of myself, that I could do this, So I, throughout those years, was attracting alcoholic boyfriends, cocaine addicted boyfriends, people that did drugs, people that didn't need me or would lie to me in my face and then whatever. It was just, I was a codependent. What can I say?
Right.
So there is a lot behind that. And a lot of that, I think, goes back to the feeling not connected and the feeling isolated and the feeling like I had to do it myself.
Yeah.
Because that's the way I was taught. I was also taught that it's good manners, right? Not to impose on other people. And I thought if I asked you for help or I called you and said I needed someone to talk to, that was imposing on you.
Right.
I had to
sort of take away your time.
Yeah, so...
I think as women, that's an interesting point, too, because I think a lot of us are like, again, either you don't want to impose, or those who are successful feel like sometimes they have to step on others to get there, because we have to prove ourselves. And if we stop to help somebody else, or stop to uplift somebody else, well, is that taking away from, my chance to shine?
Yes, still in the limelight kind of thing. I definitely sabotaged my own success sometimes because I didn't want to necessarily step on somebody else's toes, or I thought maybe that was too far, or I wouldn't get the support I wanted or needed. But so through all that time, that was my late 20s, and I did end up in therapy finally, and had a great therapist. She was a little odd, but she was wonderful. And she said a lot of things then that I'm learning, I'm relearning again in al-anon these last few years. So I did finally think I was healthy enough and decided that I would take a chance and got married to my current ex.
Yeah.
We actually got pregnant first and then got married, which flew in the face of the whole Irish Catholic thing.
Right.
But I was also 35 years old.
Yeah. Was that like a source of contention with your family? Were they like, wait?
There really were at that point. You know, I think my poor dad. You know, but
Yeah.
But in the end, you know, my mom was actually. I'll get to that anyway. She was actually the one that is most understanding where I didn't think she would be. But all along those years where I thought they didn't understand, or I thought, so there's this sort of like a dual internal thing going on, right? Because I feel all this one way isolated and depressed and up and down, and like the therapy helped at that point, and I started to try to become more healthy. There was also the other part that was compassionate and kind and wanted to be helpful and codependent and would go out of my way for anybody.
Right.
And so at that point, it was kind of, I thought I was healthy enough to sort of have a relationship and do that. And we got married, and then he was military. So I was working, we had my son, and he was off. And he was an alcoholic, and I didn't know that. They had told me he had been in AA at one point, but it was court ordered, and I didn't really know anything about that. I was like, okay, he did it. He did his duty.
It makes it at a time.
And he drank a lot, but he drank more than anybody I knew, but that wasn't really uncommon in everybody that I knew. So I didn't know he had a problem. I didn't know he was an alcoholic.
And
we spent, he just, he was a tree guy, and he would drink after work every day with all his buddies, and he might have, he could drink like a 20-pack. And I never saw him drunk. I think this is the thing, right? You have this mental image of what you think it is. And I did have friends growing up where I had this image, and I saw sort of the end stages of alcoholism, which is how I would recognize it now. But
it doesn't always look like what you expect.
It does not. He was very high functioning, and he's very intelligent and very smart and very articulate and very accomplished. Just go. My favorite description of him is that he's Bugs Bunny on a rocket. And I'm the tortoise in the hare.
Yeah.
And we kind of like that about each other. He could get to slow down, and I could get to speed up, and we sort of had that thing going on for a while. We really did. So there was a lot.
So everything's good for a while?
They were. So, my son grew older, and things got worse, and we bickered a lot more, and I did feel isolated again, and I didn't understand why. It was sort of a little bit of narcissism, but it was mostly the alcoholism. They call them the isms when you're an al-anon. So it was a lot of emotional stuff that I didn't have any experience with, didn't know how to handle, him maybe speaking down to me or berating me or wanting me to do things differently constantly. So I essentially spent my marriage explaining myself. Or trying to get him to understand where I was coming from. So if he didn't do things the way I needed them done for our child, for his safety, for his whatever, and it would end up a conversation, he'd say, yep, you're right, at some point, and then go right back to doing what he was doing. And it was this cycle that we got caught up into. And I still, I just didn't have the experience. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a support group. I didn't have a community of enough people because I didn't know how to share. I didn't know how to open up and ask for help. So we moved from Rhode Island to El Paso, Texas, when he wanted to go back into the active army, and he actually deployed twice while we were married. And then by the time he came home the second time...
How long were you together?
I think we broke up 12 or 13 years. Okay. I mean, the marriage was longer, but the divorce, during the divorce process, but essentially 12 or 13 years. And throughout all of those years, now I have a stack of books to give you. This is not the stack of books that got me through my marriage, but this is how I got through my marriage.
Wow. So, a library. Yeah.
And there was a lot more. But some of these are really good. So that was a workshop I went to. Some of these are great for... This was the last one during my divorce. When God doesn't fix it.
Are you still, is Catholicism still a big part of your life today?
I've actually been quite open to anything. So throughout those years, I was going to tell you at the beginning, I'm sort of a searcher, right? I'm always looking for the next understanding, right, to get me to the next level. Yeah. So I have tried. There's a woman named Lynn Andrews that wrote books on shamanism.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I did that for a while, and I participated in some of those groups for a few years. I've studied everything pretty much that I could get my hands on. So everything from, having gone to a monastery, to, Vermont to this kind of thing.
Oh, for Napalm.
Yeah. So in El Paso, I attended a Baptist church.
Okay.
When we got
Very
here,
different than Catholic.
and then when we got here, like 4.5 years ago, I ended up at the United Methodist Church.
Oh, yeah.
And I have gone to the Catholic Church a few times, but I still haven't quite found the home that I had when I was in college, which was at the Catholic Center at the college I
Yeah, I
attended.
kind of bounce around you. You know, what I find interesting that was like, at the core, like you said, you were kind of open to anything. I feel like a lot of religions or a lot of like spiritual beliefs at their core are the same. And it's about connection. And it's about peace. And it's about love. And it's about acceptance. And it's about kindness. And I think the only things that have ever turned me off from any sort of church is when they say those things, but the actions don't match.
Yeah. So the Baptist church in El Paso was that. They had a mom's day out.
Yeah.
They had a mom's group. And every single person there welcomed me, whether they liked me or not. Personally, I don't even know.
Right.
There are some that I was attracted to more than others, but really it was a great support group. And I was at the military base. I was off base, but I tried a different Protestant group on base. I tried the Catholic group, and I attended a few times, and I really just didn't feel as welcome as I did at this group.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that because I went looking by myself, like when I was at home in Rhode Island.
Which is scary. Like, that takes bravery and courage to be like, okay, I'm going to go seek it out.
Yep. And I'm really good at.
Good.
So in Rhode Island, back when my son was younger, before we moved there, even, I'd gone to the Catholic church, and I said, I want to teach my son values. How do I do that? Because I need someone to teach me, show me, explain it to me, walk me through it. And we didn't really have that.
Yeah.
So I formed my own little group, and we went walking all the time, just two other ladies, and I'm still in touch with them. And we tried, and when I got to El Paso, that's what I was looking for. It was that mom's group, that place I could go for values and how to do things and how to do it in community. So I got a little taste of that, and so I was looking for that when I came here. But where I really ended up seeing it and finding it and where I really want to promote it is now where I'm at. But Al-Anon got me there. That is what I get in Al-Anon.
And how did you get involved with that?
So after we were here, we were here for about a year. I was still not working. I had quit my job to move to El Paso. And my daughter was almost 4.
You have 2 kids, right?
I do. My son is almost 16 and she's almost 8.
Okay.
They're both in November.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So, we were here for about a year, and I don't even know, what the community we moved into. I don't know. My ex just got worse and worse, and it started becoming noticeable, and I still didn't know what was wrong. I still didn't know it was alcoholism.
Yeah.
But we had tried everything
Like,
through the years. We tried ADD. I almost got him. At one point, we almost had him coming down here. There's a Daniel Amen is sort of a guru about ADD.
Okay.
And he's based in Virginia. So at some point, we were still in Rhode Island. We were looking at ADD. He was getting brain scans to see about head injuries, that kind of thing. So we spent years trying to address our problems, trying to address our
figure out what the
emotional stuff was. So it was always the next thing.
Yeah.
So by the time we got here, and I finally just, skimming over a lot of stuff, he came home one day and sort of passed out on the couch, and I was like, you know what? I'm done with the attitude. I'm done with this. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And so we decided to divorce, and we lived together for another year.
So it was like a mutual decision.
It was.
Yeah.
And he could contradict me on this. I don't remember the exact timing, but in my head, I remember that the next day was the day he told me he was an alcoholic and he was going to Al-Anon.
Interesting. So that was his own choice. He recognized.
But apparently he'd been thinking on it for a while, talking to people and working up to it, and this was sort of when he finally came clean to me.
So did you kind of commend him for that to some degree? Because I can imagine that takes a lot of...
I think at that point I wasn't. So the cycle gets worse and worse for the alcoholic as well as for the Al-Anon.
Of course, yeah.
So especially where you're
I guess you
participating.
didn't recognize it either, so...
I didn't.
Right.
And so the other piece of that, of all that stuff that I was missing on that trajectory was, I have, this great doing personality and this great not connected personality.
Right.
There's a part of that where I lost my train of thought. So anyway,
okay.
I'll get back to it. I could always see people growing and changing.
Yeah.
So at that point, I just had no feelings left. I was angry. I was bitter. I was resentful.
Yeah.
I was not nice. I heard something this week, and we'll get into boundaries a little bit towards the latter part, but that's one of the things that saved me. But I heard this week about offending from the victim perspective, and that was me.
Okay.
That was me. Which is, it's not something I say with pride, but at that point I was done. I was just trying to protect my kids at that point when I
Did
realized
you
it
recognize
was so
like
bad.
This is not the person I want to be, or this is not the person I used to be? Like,
Well,
how have I gotten here?
that's exactly what it was. I kept saying to him, "You're not going to make me be who I don't want to be." And then one day it occurred to me, I already was.
Right.
I was not connected to anybody. I had no friends here. Here I did move this thing and do my kids and keep the family together and all these great ideals. And I think that's the third piece, right?
Yeah.
So what my internal life was, what my actual living outside life was, and then sort of the values that I thought I was answering to, right? Because I thought I had to be a good wife, I had to be a good mother, I had to be a good person, and what did that look like for me? So being a good wife meant putting up with it, forgiving, getting up the next day, and forgetting it ever happened. So I was handicapping myself because I couldn't see a pattern, because every day I woke up.
That too in my book too. Like we have this we look for to be good. Like that's what we're always told for as women and as girls, as young girls. Even we're told to aspire to be good. Be good at this. Do good at this. Be a good girl. Be a good daughter. Be a good wife. Be a good mother. And
right. And what does that mean?
Right.
In your family. And when people talk about family of origin, I never used to know what that meant. But really, I grew up trying to not be seen. Is what it comes down to. And I will admit this, I would lie. I would, do things behind people's backs. And I could lie so well that I would believe it. I got caught in things, and they would question me and say, "We know you did it," and I would still lie.
Right.
Like, you couldn't make me. I believed it.
Right.
I could talk myself into it. So I made it early on sort of one of those tenets that I would not lie, that I would not be that way anymore. And yet, emotionally, I was still doing that. I was still marrying somebody who made the decisions for me. I was still marrying somebody who I had to answer to and live up to and do all of those things. Okay. And there's no way to sort of get into the emotional stuff with the kids and whatever.
So you took that rapid decline into the person you never wanted to be.
Yep.
And you decided, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yep. And then he said he was going into AA and told me he was an alcoholic. And in my head, I thought, yeah, right. Okay. Here's the next new thing that's going to solve everything, which none of it has, that sort of negative attitude.
Right.
And
but again, you've been so bitter for so long, and that cycle had been occurring so long.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I was just still caught up in it.
Yeah.
So he ended up going to his AA meetings, and after about a month, I guess they recommend that people going into Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm so used to saying al-anon, that they do 30 meetings in 30 days. Well, he did 60 and 30.
Wow, that's...
Because he's an overachiever.
That's commitment. Right, you said that. You said he's very...
He's Bugs Bunny on a rocket.
Exactly.
So,
so he's going to do something, he's going to do it.
So he came back from that and said, I actually need to go to rehab. This isn't enough for me. It's not working. So he checked himself in through the military, and they were very, very supportive. So there are ways for those to do that.
I think that's important, because I think a lot of people are afraid of that. It's almost, like many other mental health issues, there's a stigma. I don't want to admit to it.
He had told me at the beginning that if he told him he had ADD, he would be kicked out of the army. Okay. So here's that perspective that I carry throughout. I can't talk to the military. I can't talk to this one. I can't say it to that one. I can't tell this one because that could get him in trouble.
I've talked to other military wives who've said, hey, I'm experiencing this issue, but I can't talk to anybody because if I do, he could lose his job.
Right.
So do you think that's a misconception?
I don't know.
Sometimes.
I don't know. I think it might depend on the chain of command.
Gotcha.
Certainly in my situation, he is such an overachiever and he is so eloquent that he may have, and he had a really, really supportive chain of command. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I think you just have to move forward with caution.
It works.
And they do have, I think it's called ASAP on base at Fort Meade, which is some kind of alcohol support program or drug abuse support program. Right. So they do have those things that are up and coming that have been in place at least for a few years. So he did go through them. He did get it sponsored, and he went for 30 days. At which time I was still angry and resentful and just trying to do what I was doing, take care of the kids.
Understandable.
Yep, and
it's not the life
protect them.
Envisioned.
Yep, and at that point was where sort of the al-anon story comes in, and my son was maybe 12 or 13, and I remember he came home and was out at one of his meetings. So most of my marriage, I think, really all I wanted was for him to pay attention to me, right? I wanted him to be nice to me.
Right.
That's a pretty low bar. That's a pretty low bar.
We want to be loved.
How hard is that? The rest will build on that, but that wasn't happening. But he came home, and so he came home, and he started going to those meetings again, and he started having this here and not there, and he was still not home, and he was still not very nice to me, and he was still not there. So my life didn't change.
So he was working on himself, but he wasn't working on.
And he'd come home and say, "Why are you so negative? Why? I've got this new thing. It's great. It's wonderful. You got to do this. I'm doing so wonderful, and that's great for you.
Yeah.
But what about me? I've been doing this for like 12 years, handling all of this, doing all of this, being strong, being whatever I was expected to be, and it wasn't enough. What it comes down to now, after 4.5 years of al-anon, is I know I did it to myself. I know my part in it, and that's part of where I want to get to as well. But anyway, so I got worse. My son got worse. Mm-hmm. My daughter was too young.
Your son got worse. What do you mean? Like behavior?
Not behavior, but mental health. In any case, he got worse and I got worse. And at that point, one of the school counselors sent him home with a packet for al-anon and said that he needs to be an al-anon. And he was 12, which is a little early for al-anon. But at this point, we've got like 10-year-olds. Like, it's everywhere here. Yeah. And it's a gift that we have so many meetings and so many people here that need it. But so I started bringing him to al-anon. So I ended up in al-anon by default. So al-anon is essentially a fellowship of family members and friends of alcoholics. Okay. And al-anon is the same thing. So
for the younger.
Yep. And so throughout all these years, I had therapists for my son, therapists for me. I would call her in a tizzy and be like, "What about this? What about that?" She one of the I remember before we moved to El Paso, and she was like, "So what's it going to look like if you do that?" And I said, "Okay, I made the decision to do that, to keep the family together, kind of thing." And she said, "So well, now that you made the decision, you just go forward." I mean, there's so many people over the years that gave me warning signs, that told me what they thought about my marriage and about where we were and what we were doing, and I couldn't see it.
But that's hard though when people are telling you too sometimes, because
you're not ready to hear it.
You're not ready to hear it, and they're not the ones living it.
Yep.
So you're the one that's going to have to live with maybe consequence is the wrong word, but you're going to have to live with the decisions and the repercussions of whatever decisions are made. Mm-hmm. So they can tell you what they see, but they're not the ones that have to live through it.
Yeah. So I ended up taking him to al-anon, and over at Arnold.
Yeah.
And they have an AA meeting there, as well as an al-anon meeting. So it's all 3 meetings on Thursday nights. So there's 2 meetings locally that offer babysitting. They're on Thursday night and Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So I took him.
Oh my god, I love your cat. Sorry.
That's about as friendly as she gets.
Oh.
But she'll kind of hang out.
I've always wanted a cat that I can like.
Oh, see, and I don't want a cat that's too snuggly.
I've never had a cat that's snuggly.
Oh, I've met a few on it.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh,
maybe
I don't know what I'm asking for. Never mind.
I think cats are like, those things, like a manifestation of what should be.
Yeah.
Like, or like to your personality, it kind of matches up. It's like a magnet, and I think she's the perfect cat for me.
Yeah, I think I've been too much for every cat I've had. I'm like, please just let me. And then they run away. So. But I've also only tried to domesticate, the feral cats. So
that'll do it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I walked in there, and I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't know what it was. And the first meeting, I just remember I was so isolated through all of this. Just because I have a friendship didn't make me feel connected. You know, so I have a lot of friends that I've had for a really long time. I have family members.
Those are great. But if they don't understand, then they can't
identify. And you don't feel that connection. You don't feel... So I went to that meeting. I just remember, and I don't remember anything about the first meeting, except that at the end they wanted to stand up and hold hands in a circle, and I
Were you like, nope?
I was like, why do you want to touch me? I honest to God was like, what? And I'm like, I cringe at that now because I'm like, that's how isolated I was. I was really suspicious of people that wanted to hold my hand. Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Like, no.
And that's the most basic of human needs.
Isn't it? Somebody just to be nice to you.
Yes, that's all we need. Oh my God, I know.
So, but something happened. My son came out of there. He had a light in his eyes and a spring in his step, and he was like, I love this. Mm-hmm. These are my people. Yeah. I mean, he actually said that, and I was like, well, he's happy. I have a babysitter for an hour, and I get to go sit with grown-ups. Yes. At the base of it, I had not had that now. So coming sort of to the mom thing, for all of those years that after I got married, I was working full time. He left when Brady was 3 to deploy for a year. Yeah. So here I am working full time, daycare, taking care of the kid, doing it on my own. He comes back, he's crazy. There's a whole bunch of emotional stuff there, but I'm still working full time. I'm still bearing the brunt and doing all the things that all the moms do. And now I'm doing it as a single mom where he's in the same town and he handles his share of the parenting and all of that stuff, and things are good now. But as a mom coming into all that stuff, trying to do self-care, which could be just an hour going to a meeting at Moms for Mental Health or at al-anon or at any other church function, whatever you find where you feel like you belong, it's so necessary. Just do it.
I know.
Find a babysitter and do it.
Right. Bring the kid if you have to.
Bring the kids if you have to.
We've had that too, and that's sort of like, you know what, if that's what it takes to get you here, then please just get here.
And so for Al-Anon, what they say is we're a fellowship of family and friends of alcoholics, and our goal is to offer support and encouragement to the alcoholic and to the family members who are affected by the disease of alcoholism.
Yeah.
Which is a mouthful. It's a program of attraction, not promotion, so we don't, there's some advertisement, but I can invite you once and then never mention it again.
Right.
But mostly over the last few years, I've learned so much, and what I've learned, what I've come to see, and I had offered to do this, I have that PowerPoint that I did at a recent Al-Anon presentation. It's sort of Al-Anon skewed, but that's sort of where I came into it, is boundaries. And boundaries is so important because that's something that maybe people think they know what it is, but I certainly was never taught boundaries.
Right. You need to circle back to that.
I never knew what it was, and so I strict Catholic upbringing. You do this, you don't do that, and of course I was already lying and cheating and whatever else to hide, to not get in trouble, to not feel that feeling, really. And so I was obviously not living it. I didn't know how to live it. But just so many things that I understand much more deeply through Al-Anon than I did any other place, regardless of how many churches or how many groups or how many people I went to see. Like, I was really just searching this whole time. And that's where I found a fellowship of people that every single one of them is looking for their spiritual fitness. Somebody was talking about that today. If there's something wrong in my life and I'm not spiritually fit, what is it about me? What do I need to change? What do I need to look at? And so through the steps, doing the steps, just like AA does, we look at the fact that we are powerless over alcohol. In Al-Anon, some people replace that with I'm powerless over people, places, and things.
Yeah.
And then it goes on from there, but a lot of the steps are looking at yourself. And so all of this story, too, is a lot of, I never knew what my part in it was. They always said, the first Al-Anon meeting I ever went to was actually in Rhode Island, before I moved to Texas, before any of this happened. And I walked in with my newborn daughter, and I walked in, and all I heard was people talking about their part in it. And all I heard was, you're blaming me for his treating me poorly?
Yeah.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
That's not what they were saying, but that's what I heard.
That's what you heard.
But that's what I heard. Apparently, see, I told you.
Sorry.
Get mad. Yes, we see you. So anyway, there's a deeper understanding that came with that. And I really just over the last few years, the things that I wanted when I came here, when I was new, I was a mom, I wasn't working, I had no adult, anything. I was still looking for groups, I was still looking for acceptance, I was still looking for something.
Yeah.
So I did find that in Al-Anon, but in Al-Anon it's a gentle program, and so I learned how to ask for help, how to pick up the phone and talk to somebody, and let it be. I knew I wanted friendships, but you can't force that. You have to be patient.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing. And I have now, after this amount of time, I have a couple of mom friends that I absolutely love. I have a couple of friends from Al-Anon that I absolutely love. I have meetup groups that I've done since the divorce. I've got people at work. I've got enough of a community that I feel like that I belong.
Yeah.
And I think so that
That's
isolation
what we want is acceptance.
That isolation comes from a feeling of not belonging. And I think that feeling of not belonging, the more I listen to Al-Anon tapes or people talking their life stories, everyone has that.
That's the thing.
Everyone
does.
Everyone.
Right?
You are not alone.
I know. And it's such a common thing for people to feel, I'm the only one that feels this way. Or, I feel this way for a reason, it must be me. What am I doing wrong?
Yep. What do I... And I'm telling you, they call it the dance, and I was dancing as hard as I could for a really long time. Yeah. And when I couldn't do it, and I mentioned the Fly Lady earlier, I have a Fly Lady calendar. That was one of the symptoms of my depression, which is why I love the Shiny Snake so much. That's what caught me. That's what pulled me in. That was her hook. Because,
so explain that a little more.
When I was living in my 20s, and I was in my final apartment before I got married, I was, during some of that depression time, where things got a lot worse, just trauma-related, whatever, trying to get through, I would go for weeks without washing the dishes. I would go work my 80-hour weeks, and I would come home. The neighbors would try to talk to me, and I get so mad. I'm like, here I am with my arms full of groceries, and you want to talk to me?
Why are you trying to talk to me?
Don't talk to me. And
but then you shut the door and go, why has nobody
talked to me? Right? But there's a balance there. I could have simply said, if you wouldn't give me 5 minutes to put these down, I'd be happy to talk to you. But I didn't even have the words for that. I couldn't tell you how to form a sentence like that. But, so I had like situations where, my dishes would pile up and they would go for weeks, or I wouldn't do my laundry, or I wouldn't do anything, or I wouldn't see anybody else for weeks at a time except at work. There were moments where I would go food shopping at midnight to avoid people. It got bad. And I don't know that anybody around me knew how bad it got.
Right. And that's another bit.
And this was before ATM cards, so it was the first time when they first came out, and they had the little kiosks only. Okay. That you could go with an ATM card, so you probably weren't born yet.
I don't know.
But I would go like in the middle of the night, and I'd go grocery, or I'd have to go get cash because you still got paper checks. So I'd have to take the paper check and sign it and go deposit it in the bank. Okay. And bank cards were brand new, so you'd had to go to the machine, you had to write out the thing and deposit it in. Like, you can't take a picture of it and upload it, all that stuff. Quick now. Which I do. Now.
Now I'm high tech.
Now I don't have to see people unless I want to, and it's okay. But I was doing everything I could to avoid people. So I worked, and I came home, and that was it. And I was completely isolated.
And then you wondered where the isolation came from.
And somehow I found Fly Lady. I must have been looking for something online, but the website is flylady.net, and her name's Martha Silly, I think. So I've been a Fly Lady person for years and years, but she has a whole program just about how to manage chores, really. But it was really, for me, it was mental health. It was, every day before you go to bed, you shine your sink. It has to be clean, it has to be shiny. And so even if you're overwhelmed with stuff, all these books, I just went and found these for you to give them to you. But you know what? If I had to pick up 5 things, you do a 5-fling boogie. I need 5 things to go somewhere, some other room. So if my kids have 15 things in here, 5 things to them, 5 things to them, go put them in your room. I don't care if they're put away. But if that's all I can manage for house cleaning today, then that's okay.
But it's so
true. She made it okay to manage.
And clutter affects your mental health. And your surroundings affect your mental health.
Yep.
And that's what I try and tell my kids. Sometimes my daughter will be like, I can't go to bed, I'm just so anxious. And I'm like, why don't you look at the state of your room? Mm-hmm. I asked her to clean it up earlier because I knew this is going to be an issue. Mm-hmm. I'll help you. Let's get it together. And then we'll clean it up. And she'll be like, I feel like I can breathe.
Yep.
And that's kid, I know. Like,
and that's
me. I know.
And I learned a lot of tips and tricks from my best friend growing up. Totally unrelated, but how to save money.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I didn't know there was such a thing as saving money until I was like, oh crap, I have no money. Like.
So, and I didn't either. Or I did, but I was in debt, and so that took a while.
It's hard.
It is, but she gave me a trick. Again, I swear to God, most of my life, and I tell this to my kids all the time, it's all about tricking your mind. So the trick for her was she had this car payment, and she paid off the car. And so however many years you go without the car payment, she never changed the payment. Yeah. She made the payment to her savings account.
That's so smart.
Right? Because she already didn't have the money. What's the difference? Pay it to your savings account. But then if you need something, it's there.
It's there. That's like we try to do with our kids. Like our kids have an opportunity. They earn 25 cents a day. Like, it's not a lot of money. But I'm like, you're little. You don't need money. And if they have a good day, and I don't mean like they have to be perfect, because they don't have to be perfect. But if they make a mistake and they own up to it, I consider that a good day. That's fine.
Absolutely.
If they're respectful, if they help if I'm asking them to help, if they do what is needed to be done around the house, like that's all I'm asking. Just own up to your own stuff and be helpful, be kind, be respectful. They get a check mark. They get 25 cents that day. So at the end of the month, they deposit whatever money they've earned in their account.
Nice.
And 50% they save, and 50%
we did save, spend, donate. Yep.
So, and it's because I want them to be able to, it's no fun for a kid to go, okay, I did all this work to earn all this money, and I'm not allowed to spend it. Yep. Like, so I get that.
Yep. We had 3 little Ziploc pencil bags.
That's so smart.
Yep, and that was it. Every allowance they got, and I'm not any good at if they didn't remind me, half the time they didn't get the money. But I give them $5 and go, okay, 2 here, $2 here, $1 here. Save, spend, donate, and then it sits in their drawer and they can do what they want.
Yeah, that's so nice.
But so all of those things, just little tricks to manage things. So Fly Lady was just one of those tools that helped me for a long time, because teaching the kids how to clean.
Right.
My mother thought teaching me how to cook was letting me sit at the table while she did it.
Right.
Except for baking, and I was not good at that, and I was not good at paying attention to it, so I really didn't learn very. I'm not a very good cook.
That's what taking out smart.
So that's where we got to here anyway. So the final thing for me for that kind of stuff, once I got into al-anon and once I sort of found my tribe here.
Yeah.
I think I could find my tribe anywhere. I've always been very open and friendly and like wanting to make connections.
I feel like that's a gift.
I just never felt connected.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, no.
So there's a difference, but it's like, but now I feel like I have a place where I belong. I can show up at a meeting and I can share what happened that day and relate it to...
I will hold you if you let me.
Relate it to... I think she just wants to go out. She's mad at me.
Oh, okay, go outside.
But the slogans and the steps in the literature and the people and the sponsorship. So you're I have a sponsor, so during the hardest times during my divorce, I would call her for guidance. And I could vent to her and I could cry to her, or if I was having a particularly difficult emotional moment, I could call up 3 different people and 2 might not be available, but one answered the phone and then one of the other ones called me back a couple hours later and I'd get 2 different perspectives on my problem that I never would have thought of on my own.
Right, because our brains all work different.
Because I can't solve it by myself.
No.
And I've learned in al-anon that trying to do that, trying to isolate and it's kind of, the word that comes is hubris, but it's a kind of pride. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not being humble. It is thinking that you can do everything yourself, and that's actually not a great
I think that a lot of people,
trait.
Like they say, you can do anything, and it's yes, you can do anything, but you can't do it all at the same time.
Yes, you can do anything, and you can do it with friends at your side, and you can ask for help.
You can do anything, but you can't do it alone, or you don't have to do it alone, and you can't, or you shouldn't do it all at one time.
Yep.
And I feel like, especially as women, we stack everything on. Okay, I'm going to be a mom. I'm going to be a wife. I'm going to be a friend. I'm going to be, an employee. I'm going to be a business owner. I'm going to be all these things at once, and none of it's going to fall because I'm
so awesome.
Right. Yeah.
Because I can handle this. Because I know this. Because I got this.
Sabotaging.
And you're just piling it on. Right. Eventually the back's going to break. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So al-anon has slogans for all of that. So I walk into this place and they've got all my answers. Easy does it. You don't have to attend every argument that you're invited to.
I like that one.
Let go, let God. There's a bunch, but the one that we talked about today, my original sponsor actually is home from Texas for the weekend, and she said that the slogan she heard that she didn't that we haven't talked about is love. Let others voluntarily evolve.
Okay.
Which is where I started this, which is I was very codependent and meshed in relationships, trying to fix everybody else's problems, trying to explain myself and dance as hard as I could to make everybody okay.
Right.
But I wasn't okay. But that was okay, because I'm codependent. I can take care of everything.
Right, I know.
But the let others voluntarily evolve comes through al-anon. I've got an entire room full of people that are showing me every day different ways to do it, different ways to handle it, how to handle our own personality traits that may be good, that may be bad. But when you go through and do an inventory and figure out your part in the problem. So, an alcoholic marriage, well, people would be like, well, you volunteered for that. You knew. You saw him drink. You saw this. You saw that. How could you not know? And that was his question. He's like, how could you not know?
Right.
When, I was drinking all the time and doing all these things. I'm like, well, I don't know. I was at work. I was taking care of the kids. I was running things around. I was getting the groceries. I was taking care of my stuff.
Yeah.
I wasn't paying attention to you, except when you came in and you were mean and nasty, and then I didn't want to be around you. And so, how did I not know? I don't know.
Right.
My part in it
was... Well, hindsight is so easy to look back and go, why didn't I see that?
Or red flags. We all beat ourselves up about not seeing red flags, and it was this, and it was that.
But that red flag is not the only thing you're focusing on.
It's not.
There's all of this other noise that you're surrounded by, and that red flag sometimes just gets lost in them.
Yep. So I think really, I just, for a lot of, that's part of why I wanted to be participating in Mom's Mental Health, because I saw that you were doing this thing that resembles al-anon. It gives women a place to go where they feel safe, which was the first thing in one of the readings in al-anon. They said, you're in the safe place, the right place to be. And I went, I'm in a safe place. And they're not going to talk about this outside the room.
No.
They're not going to, nobody's going to go run to my ex and say, she said this, she said that.
Right.
But we don't actually talk about him. We talk about me.
About
we talk about the fact that I've been this way all my life, and he just contributed to my crazy.
Right.
But I was crazy all by myself long before I met him. My part in it is that I didn't know how to take responsibility for it, that I didn't know what to do for it, and I was looking and looking and couldn't find it.
I think there's a difference between accepting your part in something and saying you're to blame.
Yes, it has nothing to do with blame.
Right, there's a huge difference, and I think that's a big misconception as well. People are like, well, if I admit that I had something to do with this, or that I've contributed in some way, then I'm taking the blame off of the person who really deserves it, and I'm putting it on myself, and that's not true, or that's not fair, and that's blaming the victim. But that's not what it is.
Nope.
It's accepting that there are two parties sometimes even more in a situation.
And if I had really understood detaching with love, I mean, people, therapists especially, tried to clue me in many times. If I had understood that when he started asking for explanations, I have this like hardwired need to answer a question as soon as it's asked.
Yeah.
Like, it'll come right out before I even think about it.
And you're like, very well.
So every question he asked, I had to explain, I had to answer, I had to talk, you know. I was taught now, I could just say, you know, if I said, you know, the sky's green today, and he'd say, no, it's red.
Right.
And I could go,
okay.
you could be right.
Right.
You could be right. That phrase has, like, transformed my life. But it's so true. Like, it gives me that moment of pause to say, do I have to talk about this? Do I have to argue about this?
Right.
Do I have to participate? I do not. And this is so helpful with my teenager right now.
So let's say I try and use that with my kids. Like, if they start to argue, I'd be like, you know what? We're not seeing eye to eye, and it's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
But it's such a practice. So this is the other part of sort of what I always talk about. It's just that I go weekly, and it fit right into my schedule. It just slid right in. This is my life now. But I practice these principles in all my affairs, and I understand that most of them apply to me first. This is about self-care for me. This is how I do self-care. But also, it just gives me, it allows me to let my teen be who he is, to let my 8-year-old be who she is. It lets me take the hands off the wheel and let them be who they are and guide and do as much as I can. That's my responsibility, but it also gives me that detachment where I'm not responsible for somebody else's bad behavior.
We're never responsible for someone else's bad behavior.
But most of us don't know that because those tapes in our head are going, you have to be good, you have to make sure that that the kids don't misbehave and that they're not throwing a temper tantrum in the grocery.
If your kid misbehaves, it must mean you're a bad mom.
Right? And all of us are walking around all the time going, well, they're probably judging me because my kid threw a hissy fit on the in the grocery store. But that's
and
not
some
the
are.
case. And some
are not my people.
And when that happens and you're in that mom moment and you're overwhelmed, what do? But it's not about them, and really what other people think of you is not your business. No. Your job is to do you as best you can, but avoiding it is not healthy. And so that's where I really did, for most of my life, try to avoid and try to suppress it and stuff it and all that stuff. And so I have actually found a place where I'm safe to share who I am. I'm safe to take a hard look at that in a gentle way and learn at my own pace and become the person I wanted to be to begin with. So I think I'm more of that person now than I've ever been. And so your original question about joy and happiness. I have had joy. The birth of my nephew. I fell in love with him. I was talking about that with one of my coworkers yesterday. I just absolutely fell head over heels with my nephew when he was born. That was like my first real experience with kids. Both of my kids, getting married. There's so many moments that are joyful. There's just as many that aren't. But on the whole, I'm a happy person and I want to be a happy person. And so how I'm getting that now is supporting where I see other people doing that, where I see people searching and getting community and becoming connected.
I think that sometimes people think of happiness as a destination and rather than a journey. So it's always, well, if I do this, I'll be happy. If I get this, I'll be happy. If this one thing could change, I'll be happy. But really it's about finding that happiness throughout your life. It's never going to be, okay, I'm finally here, I'm finally happy, I've made it, this is where I'm supposed to be. It's a constant journey towards happiness and joy. I think it's so interesting that basically you've kind of come full circle and realized the issues that I've struggled with throughout my life have been prevalent throughout my life. They've carried with me through childhood. And if only I knew, or if only I could have addressed them, or if only I had the words or the understanding or the guidance, then maybe I could have avoided some of the hardships.
And I think I just wanted to say that's why I wanted to do this with you. I think as a mentorship deal, as a safe place to go, as somebody who's modeling what everybody's looking for. Just the openness and the acceptance and the love and the, so the more people that come to the meetings, maybe they'll get that more in person, but just even doing it online is such a huge first step. And that you have so many people that are coming to do that. I wanted them to just hear, you know what, I'm 50 years old and just figuring this stuff out.
That's okay.
But it can be done.
We're all struggling.
And I'm not a perfect person, progress, not perfection. My kids still have their struggles with me, and I'm 50 years old running around with an almost 8-year-old. So we'll see how that goes, But
nobody's perfect.
It's not easy, but we can do it together.
Yeah, we can. Stronger together. And I think that, your story is going to speak to a lot of people. just about they have the tools they need to succeed. They just need to know how to access
that was
them.
the other thing I was going to say. You need to work them. So that was
Yeah.
the thing. Every time I'd come back to Al-Anon, people would say something, be like, you know what? They call it working your program, but
Right.
you think of it as lifting weights. You need to exercise that muscle. You need to do it on a daily basis, and that's why I go back so often every weekend. It's part of my who I am now, because I need reminders. I need to be told. I need a different perspective every week on how to do the same thing.
Right. Again, it's a destination. It's not a journey. You can't eat a salad and then be like, okay, well, I ate that today, so now I'm healthy. Like,
and I think a lot of the struggle with being a mom is kids are tough.
Yeah.
You know, they're little dictators. I have a friend online that calls her children little dictators.
They are. Well, they have free will, and we forget that. Like, you can tell them what to do, but ultimately it's their decision whether or not they're going to do it. And you can set them up with all the tools for success, but ultimately if they don't use those tools for success, like, that's on them. So, yeah.
It's a tough place to be, but I just remember talking this week to someone and saying, you know, what it really comes down to is for kids, and I've been through the cycles, you know, I have had 2 kids, you know, we would try something for 2 or 3 weeks, and all those books, some of those are children, you know.
Yeah, I saw
and the cycles would be like, you're dealing with a specific behavior, or a specific attitude, or a specific something, you know, and we'd try something, and it would work for 3 or 4 weeks.
Right.
And then you had to start all over again because it stopped working. And it's so frustrating, and it's so defeating, and it's so hard, and you know, I think a lot of what you say in that group, you know, I see you, I hear you, I'm there with you. We are in this together. We can do this together. And if you come to the group and you tell people how you're feeling, you're going to get, hey, my experience is this. Hey, my experience is that.
Right. And it's never, you should be doing this. But it's, I've been there. This is what I've tried. Maybe I can help.
Yep.
It's complete non-judgment.
Yep.
I think the world needs a little more of that.
And I think it gives everybody a little bit of, you know what, I can do this, and I do have
people on my side.
But it is. Soon enough, I know we all hear it. You know, they're going to be grown up before you know it. Well, they really are.
They
and
are.
You know what? So it gives you that space to appreciate where you are too.
Right.
You know, and to say, this is where I want to be. You know, through all those years when I was doing most of it by myself, he'd be like, well, you want to be home with the kids anyway. Absolutely, I do. That's exactly where
But
I
all
want
you
to be.
wanted ultimately was to be seen and to be heard. You didn't really want the situation to change. You just wanted to be like, I see you. I've been there. It's tough. It sucks. Just because it was hard doesn't mean we're complaining about it. Like,
yep, exactly. So yeah, that breathing room I think is important, and I think that's what you do for people.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Yay.
Thanks for listening. Join us next time on Joyful People.